Colt Emerson has been on a tear lately in spring training. We're going to talk about the games that I have been to and just how good he has looked at the plate. And then we're going to talk about the battle between Emerson Hancock and Logan Evans to fill that fifth starter spot left behind by George Kirby and who's going to take his place in his absence. And we're going to wrap it all up by talking about the fact that Luke Raley has hardly played first base this spring. It's mainly been Tyler Locklear and Rowdy Tellez. We haven't seen Donovan Solano over there either. Is this a sign of things to come for this team come opening day, or is this just a whole lot of nothing? Thank you guys so much for watching episode 172 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network, the Joey episode of the podcast. I met Joey at Sloan Park the other day, just kind of walking by him. So, Joey, appreciate you saying hey, man. And I am here with Joe. I'm not actually here with Joe this time. We're not in person. No. He's in my setup. I'm in a house. And but Joe, how was your flight home? How you doing?
It was good. It got delayed. I don't know if people know that my first flight on Thursday night got canceled. So that was a fun time. So that happened, and then got another flight the following day that then got delayed 2 hours right as soon as I got to the airport. So really fun. Had a great time sitting in Sky Harbor Airport with a stripe down the center of my head. Got plenty of dirty looks. Colton, not your fault, but there were some other people that we need to mention for whose episode it is, because we haven't had a podcast since. So Josh, we had Mason and Jason, and then didn't give us a name as we were walking around. It was surprise. Yeah. Didn't give us a name. He just kind of said, nice hair from a distance, kind of walked over, whatever, and then went back to his friends. Didn't have a chance to catch your name, but if you're watching this, I appreciate the compliment. The TSA guy agrees with you, as he said, I like your cut, as I walked up and handed him my ID. That was not my most favorite interaction with the TSA gentleman. Clearly making a mockery of me, but I did it to myself. Something, Colton. Ever since I left, the Mariners offense has not really been making a mockery of themselves as they were maybe when I was there. You know what I mean? Offense didn't look exceptional in the games that I did go see. Some games were better, some games were worse, whatever. But Friday against the Dodgers, put up 4. Put up 8 against the Cubs yesterday. And then the day that we're recording this, the day previous to when you're hearing this, they put up 8 against the Rockies. Looks like, I don't know if the batters are catching up to the pitchers, however spring training necessarily works, but last couple of games I think have been a bit more exciting as far as where the offense is at. The main one being Colt Emerson, and his EV has just been insane. 100 plus off the bat several times in the last couple of games. You've been to these games. How have they been compared to the ones where I was there?
You know, Colt Emerson's a guy where I've seen, he could probably be, a top 10 prospect in all of baseball. But over the past few days, I am legitimately on board that he should be a top 10 prospect in all of baseball by the middle of the year. He has looked every bit as good as he has looked like the best player on the field multiple times over the past couple of days. Obviously, when they were playing the Cubs, the big home run almost up to the Hornitos tent. Unfortunately, for some reason, Sloan doesn't have StatCast data, so he probably would have broke it anyway, so it doesn't matter. But that thing was that is a long way.
I think Divish said it was 112. He said something about it later, and then there was only 4 Mariners batters that registered a max EV higher than that, either in spring so far or last. I can't remember the tweet. I know Mariner Muse tweeted about it, but that has been the swing of the spring, I would say, so far among anyone putting on a Mariners uniform.
Yeah, and I think that what we saw in today's game, which was at Peoria, he had a rocket to left center field that ended up being caught, but he hit that thing hard, over 100 miles an hour, like you said, and then he crushed one off the very top of the wall that I thought was getting out again. And it's he just looks so right up there. He looks like he's already in mid-season form. And I think that's a big deal for the Mariners, because obviously when you look at the prospects, you know that Cole Young and Harry Ford, who had a big home run in his own right the other day as well against the Cubs, I think was also crushed. Those guys, we all kind of have an idea of where they're going to start. It's either going to be AAA for Cole Young, might see Tyler Locklear down there, Ben Williamson, etc. With Colt Emerson, I'll be interested to see how quickly he is able to rise through the ranks of the minor leagues this year. Not to say the Mariners should rush him, because they absolutely shouldn't. they have plenty of time to, to let him develop. But at the same time, like, where do you think that we see him at the end of the year, Joe? Because honestly, for how good he's looked, he has looked like he could be ready to be on the big league roster tomorrow.
A little bullish. Sure, if he's playing well, he's playing well. Let the kids play. He'll be in Arkansas by season's end, I think, without a lot of doubt in my mind. So he's gonna help lead the Travs to another Texas League ship, just like Cole Young helped last season. But in my head, he starts in Everett again. He just kind of picks back up where he left off, and then if he's looking like he is right now in Everett, then he'll be in Arkansas by June. Somewhere around there. Because I think first half of the Texas League ends in the end of June usually, unless that's changed. I'm not entirely sure about how seasons and formats are for minor league, AAA, AA, whatever. I think he'll end in Arkansas, though, pretty safely. I don't see him making the jump to Tacoma. That feels a bit egregious.
No.
I could see, like, Arroyo getting there because he'll probably start in AA. Like, they'll kind of, like, stagger them that way. But regardless, Colt, he is playing his way into, like you're saying, he's already a top 20 prospect in baseball, midseason ranked. If he is playing the way that we've seen him kind of showcase the last couple of games, he's going to be a top 10, without a doubt in my mind.
He might even be number 1 if he keeps playing like he has been.
Whoa!
Obviously, it's just a few at bats. You know what I mean? Just a few games. But I mean, even in batting practice, like the ball does. Like I know people say it all the time. It does sound different off his bat.
Yeah.
Like it just sounds smoother, and he's always finding the barrel, it sounds like. And, I'm not a hitting coach. I'm not going to go out there and be able to tell you, how good his swing looks and why it looks good, but I think it looks fantastic. It looks literally major league ready, and I find that very intriguing. I don't know. A few other guys that have looked good recently, again, was Harry Ford's had a good spring. He's had a really good spring. You know who hasn't had a good spring yet, Joe? Is still Dylan Moore.
Shock. Imagine whose narrative that is getting pushed right now.
It's my narrative.
That's kind of crazy.
Pushed. But another couple of guys that haven't had good springs yet, Joe, have been Logan Evans and Emerson Hancock, both of which are vying for that 5th starter spot, along with Michael Morales, although we haven't seen him, I don't think, at all in any games, which kind of sucks. Brandon Garcia as well as another option, but it's really between Logan Evans and Emerson Hancock, and both guys have not looked great.
Are you seriously going to not say Jonathan Diaz?
I'm just kidding. Jonathan Diaz in the split squad game.
Split squad Diamondbacks Mariners game made 2 and 2.
Rise up.
Yeah, shout out Air Bear. Recorded 2 2/3 of innings pitched. 2 2/3 outs.
But across 4 different innings.
Across like 4 different stints in that game. Absolutely hilarious. The 5th spot with George Kirby obviously being out for the first part of the year. Don't know how long. I assume it's probably just gonna be the first month, similar to Brian Wu was last year. Is kind of the vibe that I'm getting, because he's not gonna be able to ramp back up, so they're gonna have to build him back up. Is how it's looking for George. But Emerson Hancock is, I think, the rightful heir to the throne, essentially, to kind of step right into the rotation, with Logan Evans playing spoiler for that, depending on how the rest of the spring goes. Not really pertinent to the information that I'm about to present, but did you know that Logan Evans didn't pitch in Everett at all?
Oh, really? I did not know that.
2023, just straight to Modesto, or 2023 Modesto and the ACL. And then in 2024, straight up Arkansas. No Everett, which I found kind of surprising. But Evans in 2024 obviously jumped up a lot of Mariners prospect rankings, shot himself into like the top 15 area. I Bleav on the most recent re-rank he is 10th, if memory serves, for the little bit that we looked at it when that did drop. Yep. But in 2024, over 107 innings, he had a 3.20 ERA. He started 32 games and pitched in 22, because there was that time, or no, he started 22, pitched in 32, because there was that time where they were transitioning to a reliever just to see how it would go. But a 3.20 whip with a 3.20 ERA with a 1.17 whip across those 107 innings. Pretty solid stuff from Logan Evans down in Arkansas. A reason why he shot up a lot of those lists. Emerson Hancock last year did see some time in the bigs. He started 12 games for the Mariners, pitched 60 and 2/3 to a 4.75 ERA. Not terrible, not great. It's about what you'd expect out of a fifth starter. You'd see there's a lot of stuff online where among starting pitchers that have pitched a certain amount of innings since Emerson Hancock made his debut in 2023, he is near the bottom in a lot of those ranks in like ERA, WHIP, etc. He's not a great pitcher by any means. He is a standard number 5 on a handful of teams. That he's only a 5 when the Mariners have an injury. And that's kind of the type of pitcher that you're going to get with Emerson Hancock, and maybe for good reason why there should be a competition between him and Logan Evans the rest of spring. For the rest of Hancock's 2024, he did pitch in Tacoma, a very hitter-friendly PCL, a 3.43 ERA in 17 starts, 94 and a third innings, like pretty decent, not too bad. But spring training has not been very kind to him. He currently boasts a 9.53 ERA, just in 5 2/3. It's spring. They're not throwing a bunch of innings. The ERAs are going to be very inflated. Same thing with the WHIP. He's got a 1.94, nearly a 2 WHIP. You can go through each individual start, right? Against Arizona on the 23rd, 1 2/3, 3 hits, 1 earned, 2 strikeouts. March 1st against the White Sox. I think that's the first game that I saw, right? March 1st?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, it's the 18-9 game.
Yep.
1 2/3, 2 hits, 2 earned, 3 strikeouts. His ERA goes up to 8.1. And now, most recently against the Dodgers. Oh, someone's sleepy. 2 1/3, 4 hits, 3 earned. Your microphone caught your yawn. What do you want me to do? Not address it? Most recently for Emerson Hancock against the Dodgers on March 7th. A 2 1/3 outing, 4 hits, 3 earned, 4 strikeouts. It's getting worse. You're a madman. It's getting worse for Emerson Hancock. But for Logan Evans, it's getting better. February 22nd against the Angels, 1 1/3, 5 hits, 4 earned. The exact way you'd want spring training to go. It was hilarious watching that first inning kind of play out. March 1st against the White Sox, 2/3 of an inning, 3 hits, 4 earned, a home run, 2 walks. Just rough stuff. But March 7th against the Dodgers, 3 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned, 1 home run. So there's a solo shot there with 3 strikeouts. It's getting better, it looks like, for Logan Evans, whereas for Emerson Hancock, it seems like it's trending in the wrong direction. If this does continue, I wouldn't be surprised if Logan Evans wins the 5th spot if it does continue in that way. It's going to take a lot for Evans to, I think, take that job from Emerson Hancock. I think the Mariners will value the, I guess, I don't want to call it pedigree, just the experience about pitching in the bigs, pitching in T-Mobile. But with that being said, if Hancock is the 5th starter, 2 turns through the rotation and they've lost both games, he hasn't been competitive in either of them. Listen, if Evans makes that 3rd start, 15 games into the season, I wouldn't be surprised if it, by the 2nd or 3rd week of April, if Evans gets called up because Emerson Hancock hasn't been good.
And I think it's healthy to have a competition in spring, like they're going to have the rest of the way, to see who it's going to be, even if they're probably leaning Hancock. Like you said, he's been in the big leagues. He's faced major league hitters. They know that he can get them out. It's just a matter of can he locate his pitches to get them out. And I think that a lot of what we've seen this spring, we know he's been trying to work on a new curveball. And I believe his strikeout rate is up this spring, which is important because that's something that he was really trying to get that curveball for, was to be able to put hitters away. And so that I find very intriguing for Emerson Hancock. For Logan Evans, though, I mean, what more do you need to see from him down in the minor leagues? You know what I mean? Like, Hancock's had his chance in the majors, and he hasn't done anything with it. Like, maybe it is time to just give Logan Evans a chance and send Hancock down to AAA. And I think Hancock had a good year in AAA last year, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. So, like, he's literally like the Dominic Canzone, like Cade Marlowe. He's just a quad A guy. And I think that the only other option is that the Mariners go out there and sign somebody. And I want to say, like, Spencer Turnbull's still available. Who else was still? There was a few other guys that were still available just to eat some innings. They're not going to be great, but they're major league starters that can get the job done. Now, do you already have that in Emerson Hancock? Maybe. I think Turnbull's better than Hancock, but I think that Hancock has a higher upside. And so it's kind of a fine line of what do the Mariners want to walk and how do they want to do that. I think that if you go with Logan Evans, you don't want to, when George comes back, like you don't be like, okay, bye Logan. Like that just sucks. You got to send him right back down. Even if he's pitching great, you're probably just going to send him back down.
Yeah.
And that's going to suck if you're him. Whereas if you're Hancock, you've already done that. You did that with Brian Wu last year. Like you're used to being sent up and down. Logan Evans, gosh darn it. Logan Evans, if you send him down, like, I mean, who was it? Was it Justice Sheffield that like got sent down and he just was awful after that? Like he had pitched pretty well at the majors, but then there was a roster crunch, got sent down, and his mentals just tanked, and he sucked after that. And then they sent him down all the way down to single A. Like it was crazy. I'm not to say that would happen with Logan Evans, but the idea is there. It could,
I guess.
And so I think that I think it'll be Hancock. He did it last year. He's been fine in spot starts. I know people don't love him, but like as a fifth starter, you can get by. When your other four are some of the best in baseball, you can get by with a fifth starter who is maybe subpar.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, like you said, maybe you just go with Jonathan Diaz. Yikes. You know, maybe you do go with a guy who's just going to eat some innings for you, and if you have to DFA him in a month, who cares? Granted, he's not on the 40-man right now because he was DFA'd last month, but that's neither here nor there. Now, let's switch gears here a little bit to another spring training competition, and this is a competition at first base, which we figured was locked up with Luke Raley and Donovan Solano over there at first base. Between the two of Luke Raley and Donovan Solano, they have played a total of 3 games at first base so far this spring. First base has largely been occupied by Tyler Locklear and most recently Rowdy Tellez. Now, we know the Mariners are probably going to have an extra spot on the bench they need to figure out who to fill it with. Whether that be, carrying Ryan Bliss or, Leo Rivas, or in this case, Rowdy Tellez or Tyler Locklear. Having Haniger be more of a fourth outfielder, which would lead me to believe that, did I say Haniger? Having Luke Raley be more of a fourth outfielder, leaving Haniger as a guy who could just be gone. Which is, I think, the role that we all think that Luke Raley should be in. Like, he's an outfielder playing first base. Like, he probably shouldn't be starting. Not to say that he's awful there. He's fine. Like, I think that Luke should play 5 times a week.
Yeah.
I just think that he is better suited giving every guy in the outfield a day off.
Mm-hmm.
Or giving them a day at DH. Whereas Rowdy Tellez, he's crushed a few home runs. He's hit the ball hard, and he's obviously a fun dude. He looks like he vibes with the clubhouse really well. He's a left-handed power bat that you can have as well, which I think is important. The Mariners kind of desperately need that in their lineup. I don't know, man. I mean, Donovan Solano's played a lot at third. Yep. We did see Jorge Polanco start at third the other day, which was good. He turned a double play. Looked fine. So that's a plus.
Also hit a homer.
Yeah, he crushed that thing.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, do you think there's anything to this? Or do you think they're just giving Rowdy some run to see what he's got? And then if, at the end of the spring, because he has some opt-outs as well. So that's interesting. I don't remember exactly what his opt-outs were, but if he's not on the major league roster by certain dates, he can opt out. And I don't know. What do you think?
Let me pull up what his contract says for those opt-outs. But you kind of said exactly what I think as far as what's the what do I think is there the idea behind giving Rowdy more of the time at first. It's literally just to see what he's got. I don't think that he is going to start at first base over Luke Raley if he does make the 26-man roster. I don't think that would be necessarily the case. It would be giving him a day off, like Luke Raley giving him a day off, having someone else be able to play first, and having Solano be a bit of an insurance policy at third for Polanco if his knee isn't necessarily the most healthy. I just don't understand. I don't know if there's a possibility for it to work out for the 26-man roster with how it's currently constructed, because you have to let go of Haniger to have Rowdy on the 26-man, in my opinion. I don't know if there's room. I don't know if there's the fit that I think we're all expecting. And it's hard because what we're seeing most often than not, during spring is Rowdy playing first, Luke in left field or DHing, and then Solano at third. Like that's been the most common whatever whenever we see Rowdy in the lineup. That's usually where we see that, puzzle pieces of guys fitting in. That's because spring training, you don't have the 26-man roster crunch. You can just throw whoever out there willy-nilly. There's still conversation about Miles Mastrobuoni making the 26-man roster, let alone Leo Rivas, Ryan Bliss, Dom Canzone. The roster crunch is getting a bit... It's getting more narrow. And I don't know, and this is unfortunate wording, if Rowdy fits. As a fellow big man,
as a fellow member of Girthquake, you're gonna do him like that?
Listen,
that's crazy.
When the roster crunch it gets tight, he's got to think thin. He's got to squeeze, anaconda squeeze kind of a thing. Nacho Libre, no, got it. Anyways, he's playing well, and I think he's playing well enough. I don't know. He's got like a 740 OPS. He's launched some baseballs. He plays. Okay, it's first base. Like the defense, who cares? It's not going to be terrible. He has good vibes. Where does he fit in? I think if this team was not contending, I think it would be someone that you'd try and roster. If this team does not view themselves as competitive. And that's no discredit to Rowdy as a professional. I just think that a team that has bigger aspirations than, say, finishing, couple like near 500, like they're trying to be 7-8 games above 500, win the division. What's the just get in? Is that the mantra or whatever?
Yeah, that they said this year.
Just get in instead of win it all on a whiteboard. Me too. Same, brother. I think he's an interesting player. Don't get me wrong. I think Rowdy on the roster would be a lot of fun. Mike Ford, obviously the Daniel Vogelbach archetype. But when you break down those bench spots, I don't see how he fits in as much as maybe you do. Because I think you're more on board with it than I am. But I don't know if it's just because I'm being pessimistic about the way the roster's constructed as far as how he fits in. Because there's guys, like you said, Locklear's not starting in the bigs. He's got options. There's no point. Dom Canzone has an option. I don't think he starts in the bigs. Ryan Bliss has, I think, more options than Rivas, would be my guess. Probably doesn't start in the bigs unless he wins second base. Rowdy Tellez, he doesn't have options, so maybe they carry him for a month, similar to, like here's a Jonathan Diaz, and you just kick him to the curb if he's not playing well. And you DFA him at that point. There's not a clear path for me to imagine Rowdy making the 26-man roster, especially as like the starting first baseman. I could see him, as the lefty bat on the bench, but he's got to hit 300 in spring. And he's currently hitting like 208. Like or maybe not even 300. He just needs to hit tanks left and right. And he's done that a little bit, but he needs to be a bit more consistent, I think, as far as showing what he can provide to a team for, maybe 2 starts a week, 3 starts a week, and then a pinch hit late in the game.
What I find interesting, and not to say that I disagree with your point here, just to further it a little bit, is you mentioned that a competitive team wouldn't have Rowdy Tellez as their starting first baseman, right? A competitive team also wouldn't carry Mitch Haniger.
You're right.
A competitive team wouldn't have Dylan Moore as their starting second baseman.
You're right.
The Mariners don't make sense. they claim to be competitive, but then they make some of the stupidest roster decisions they possibly could. So, like, not to say that adding Rowdy would be a stupid decision. I think that Rowdy is more valuable than Mitch Haniger, and I think that Mitch Haniger should be dumped for Rowdy Tellez. I think that the left-handed first base bat is much more important than the random right-handed outfield bat that's not going to get used. So I truly don't understand why the Mariners, and again, maybe they do dump Mitch somehow, some way before the end of spring training. But if you go into the season with Mitch Haniger on your team and you don't have Rowdy Tellez, you're not trying to win. You're not trying to win a division. You are, not to say that Rowdy is the big thing that's going to change it, but it's just the faith that I have in the Mariners' ability to try to build a roster for winning compared to, we're paying him money, we got to keep him.
Sure.
Yeah. you're not trying to win. The Mariners should carry Rowdy Tellez over Mitch Haniger.
So I'm looking at roster resource right now. So the starting lineup we all know, except they've made some changes. Ryan Bliss is now the starting second baseman on roster resource with Dylan Moore on the bench. You've got Garver on the bench. You have Solano on the bench. Like I said, Dylan Moore. And then Dom Canzone on the bench as well. With Mitch Haniger still in there at DH batting sixth. Against a right-handed pitcher, subbing in Rowdy Tellez in for that DH spot, and then you'd shift some stuff around because lefty righties, whatever, however Dan wants to build the lineup. Yeah, that is a lineup that I think would win more games than with Mitch Haniger in it. And then if you move him to the bench with versus a left-handed pitcher, you still have Donovan Solano, Mitch Garver, and then Dylan Moore that could play, that comes into the bench. And then you'd have Rowdy, Luke, Dom, and then someone else on your bench more than likely. I think it would balance out the lefty-righty kind of platoon area because you're looking at the DH spot necessarily with Mitch Haniger. Your other one is Mitch Garver that you're probably going to roll out there more often than not. Maybe Solano sees some time there, but obviously as we've seen in years past, outfielders like Randy, Luke, even Julio, they'll see a DH day every once in a while. Cal, he'll DH every once in a while too. So it's not this strict position. Having Rowdy would definitely make the team a bit more balanced in that regard.
And the easiest way to get those outfielders DH days, have Luke Raley be an outfielder.
As opposed to starting at first base 4 times a week.
Let Rowdy Tellez and Donovan Solano share first base. And let Luke Raley be an outfielder, a roaming outfielder. And I think that with roster resources, it's interesting that they have Dominic Canzone. That's just a team full. Oops, all outfielders. So you have the starting 3. You have Mitch in at DH. You have Dominic Canzone on your bench and Dylan Moore.
Oops.
That's a lot of outfielders, dude. Yeah. I just don't get that. I don't get that at all. And so, yeah, I think that you're right. I think that the team wins more games if Rowdy Tellez is in there and he just DHs with Garver. Boom, done right there. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation to have. And again, not to say, maybe I'm reading way too, I guarantee I'm reading way too far into this. But I think that there is a possibility that is the plan. That the Mariners are going to go with Rowdy Tellez and Donovan Solano at first base. Move Luke Raley to be a roaming guy who DHs quite a bit as well. And then Garver's relegated as just a backup catcher role. Mitch Haniger's off the team. And Dylan Moore, again, I hope, is a bench guy. I think that is the way they should go. Whether or not they're going to do that, I don't know. It's up to Dan, truly. Mm-hmm. And so we'll just have to wait and see on that. But do you think that if Rowdy makes a team, do you think he's off of it by June?
For who though? Would it be to call up Tyler Locklear?
Maybe.
That question is if he's hitting, and that's I think
right.
The question for a lot of these guys. If Haniger stays on the team, but he's not hitting by June, he's gone. Rowdy, he makes the roster. If he's not hitting by June, he's gone. Looking at their 2024s, Mitch had a 620 OPS. Rowdy had a 690 OPS. So it's not that much better, but it is better. It is a bit more serviceable. You're going to get more pop. You're going to get more out of Rowdy. A similar amount of plate appearances, it looks like, or at bats. Rowdy had 383. Mitch had 380. So 70 points better in the OPS with around the same amount of ABs. It can't. The hard part is it can't get worse than what Mitch gave you in 2024. Out of, relative to expectations for a spot start outfielder DH or just, a spot start first baseman DH. Yeah, Rowdy is going to be the better player. And I'm not here to argue that. I don't think he would be. It's just we know how the Mariners aren't going to eat Haniger's money. And they're not going to be able to trade him. So what do? They're just going to pay him and at the end of the day, just have to suffer because of it
and play down a man. Yeah.
For whatever reason, they just are incompetent in that regard.
They're going to pay him the money either way. Just cut him. You're going to pay him if you cut him. You're going to pay him if he's on your bench. Give yourself the best chance to win. I love Mitch Haniger. You guys know I think that he should be a Mariners Hall of Famer. Cut him. It just doesn't make sense to carry him. And I think that, again, the positional versatility, which is interesting to say because it's not like Rowdy is like a utility guy. But Mitch Haniger's just a DH.
Mhm.
That's all he is. He's not an outfielder. And that is, you're locking yourself into a DH that can't hit. It just doesn't make, like, he has, I don't know. I would love to eat my words. I would love for Mitch Haniger to come out and be a very productive member of this team. That would be like my favorite outcome of what we're talking about. I don't see it happening. So I think that if the Mariners were smart, they would let Rowdy Tellez be the first baseman. But let us know in the comments down below if you agree with that. We appreciate you guys watching this episode of the Hit It Here podcast, and go Mariners.